Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of Relatively Damaged Live. My name is Angela and I'm going to be your host today. Well, I could be the host today also, I suppose. What do you think, Scott? Should I be the host for the day?
Let's do that. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Scott though. Scott McKee is okay, I'm going to call him amazing on camera and recorded. So now you're stuck. It's there forever, Scott. I have known Scott for, I want to say, 20 years. Scott is married to a wonderful woman whom I also love. And one of the things I was saying about Scott before, or I said to Scott, is one of the neat things about walking up to Scott is this authentic, loving, and unconditional, just love you who you are, and whoever that is perfect in that moment. So I could be cranky and he will still love me, and the same with Michelle, or I will be lost and she will still love me, and it's beautiful. But he is a father of 4, grandfather of 12, and like I already said, you could imagine, a friend to many. He is also a retired peace officer. You used to work in the prison systems, if I remember
Correct.
correctly.
Prisons and parole. Yep.
Yeah, prisons and parole. And he continues to help. So if you could imagine working in parole, he got to help a lot of people there. And now he is a coach. So his area of focus is clients that are human beings, no other restrictions or boundaries. Scott,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. And thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. That was a very, very nice preview. Like we said earlier, I don't know who that is. I'm hoping to live up to that. That was very, very nice. The beautiful wife and the kind wife and the loving wife, I agree with all of those, and I'm working to be all the others. So that was great. Yeah. The
Yeah.
thing about the parole that you were saying is my favorite part about parole is that I got to work with people that didn't want to be helped. Many of them had just decided that um, society's thrown them away, so they're good with it. And it was interesting watching people that you truly were kind to and loved um, receive that. They'd never, I had one gentleman that said he had never been called his name till he went to school. First time he knew that his name was Stephen was when they called him that in preschool, and he didn't answer, and they kept saying it and he didn't answer because he'd been called out of his name his whole life. So being able to call people and treat people with love in a job that's not normally that way was I love that's where I felt that I could show my love the most. So when you said that, showing love to even people who are cranky, I think that helped me to learn that. Working with parolees for 15, almost 16 years, necessarily cranky was probably a good start, is where they came from. So.
Right, it could be much worse. So when you went into parole, it sounds like that was a lesson you learned. So how did you learn that lesson of love, to love?
Um, I think the best way I could say that is to have been that, where my I brag on my bride. I brag on her a lot. I remember when we were younger, she was just kind to me even when I didn't deserve it. And that's what made me fall in love with her. I'm like, this person just is kind. I saw her kind to everyone. And I was trying to be like that. I think I'm a pretty good student. I see things that I think are amazing. And then I go up to the person. I'm like, can you mentor me? I want to learn from you. I want to, and it didn't hurt. She was cute and nice and kind. But I think she taught me a lot about that. And so as I saw it work, then I started passing that on. And my mom, always loving, kind. So I had a lot of women in my life that showed me that. And so I wanted to do the same thing. When I went to the academy, I was calling the parolee sir and gentleman, and they were saying, you don't talk to them like that. It's inmate and it's this. And I went through my whole entire career mostly untouched and unharmed, because treating people well, when things are going to get ugly, they let you know things are going to get ugly. And treating people well, there's less of a chance that there's going to be violence. And so it was a awesome 27 years. And I still got, I had a couple parolees that still sent me Father's Day things over Messenger that said, you're the only one that ever treated me like a father, like a human, after I was done doing parole. So,
would these like I mean, they're prisoners, there's the societal belief, and there's these stories, and you're recognizing them as people. But at first, when you started to really be like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna love these guys,"
mhm.
that did it feel weird or awkward, or, like, before you had the reputation of being the guy that you are, was there a struggle there to get to that point?
Well, I think the struggle was more with the people I was working with than myself, because they didn't trust that it was real. Kindness,
The pro
kindness
the
is,
kid
yeah,
the
the parolees, the
okay.
inmates, the individuals I was working with. Kindness isn't real, right? Kindness is the beginning of a con. It's the beginning of trying to manipulate. There isn't kindness for kindness sake. At least a lot of them hadn't seen that. And so when you're kind and they're trying to figure out what that is, and kind isn't always easy. Sometimes kind was hard. I'm going to get you a job. I don't want a job. I want my bus tickets, my food vouchers, my this. I don't give out tickets and food vouchers, but I can get you a job. I can get you into school. I can get you this. So sometimes kind wasn't like cuddly, but it was always kind. And they were just trying to figure out what this really is, how this really works. And once I'd worked with individuals for a period of time, then they saw, no, he's really actually wanting me to succeed. He wants me to have a great life. He wants me to be happy. And
Mm.
once they see that, then it's great. But sometimes they don't hang around long enough to see it. And then that was the hard part, because they don't get to realize that it's real. Kindness is real. And there are people out there who are truly kind.
So there was like an energetic exchange of love and some clear boundaries. I'm not going to give this out
Oh, right, right,
just because but you can do this and I'll
right,
help you do this.
right,
And so there was that support.
right. Well, they found that when they started making money of their own, it was life changing. I know life is now not about money, and I know life is not about a paycheck. But some of these individuals had never seen their name on a paycheck, so they never thought they were of any worth. But now there was their name next to an amount of money, and they're like, "Wait a second, people think I'm of worth," and they get pulled over by an officer, and they'd have money in their pocket, and they didn't have to explain it because here's my check stub. I mean, I'm doing good things, and so that changed into their self-worth being self-worth for real, not just an outside necessary self-worth. But it was, I think it was really positive to work with individuals and let them know that, hey, there's far more than these other things. If you spend your time doing things good rather than looking for the next con, there's really good things out there, and you feel better. I mean, you don't have to constantly think about the truth because it's there. But if your entire life is constantly thinking about what lie did I say this time, and I have to constantly correct that and be that. So
Is there like this sense of desperation that they have too, like just to meet their needs, or is it? I mean, yeah, I'm going to stop there
yeah,
with
no,
that
yeah, I
question.
think there's well, and I'm going to answer a little piece of that. Some yes, some it's just literally to make it. Others it's just become their lifestyle and it's just what is. You've got people saying you're going to be like your uncle, you're going to be like your dad, and they became self-fulfilling prophets. I mean, they heard it enough that they thought, okay, I'm going to do it, and that's who I'm going to be. And there never was really another side. And so there was that statement of rehabilitation with people who had never been habilitated. You're bringing them back to what they never have had a life where they've lived in the norm, or where whatever norm is, where they've lived, where they're not looking for a criminal way to succeed. And
You
so,
think you could also say they lived without that love?
oh, absolutely, 100%, absolutely. And that's why I said they were so mind blown by that. When you are actually really caring about them, they were like, why? Do you get extra money for this? Do you get things taken off your parole if you do this? And my thing was, no, it's no different for me. And actually it's harder for me to do these things, because I have to be out looking for people that are willing to hire you. I have to be out looking for places that are willing to take you in at school. I have to be looking for these things. And then I have to trust you enough that you're not going to ruin it for all the rest of the people that I've been setting up in this. And so there has to be build that trust also. Because if I send someone over to a job place and they rip them off, chances are they're not going to hire any more of the people I'm going to be sending over there. So we've got to build
Right.
that trust factor. So
Wow, I never
yeah,
really thought about that. It's really around the whole, there's a whole circle here
yeah.
of,
Oh, absolutely.
and you're kind of facilitating the support on both sides. And at the same time, I think it's huge that you're sharing that love with people who probably are behaving in ways that it might be really hard to love them.
Right.
And I'm still not sure I totally understand how to do that, right? Like, I'm thinking of a situation in my life right now where, there is one person who is really hard for me to love, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been injured by them, and the last thing I want to do is provide them with, a sense of social safety, because I'm still hurt and angry.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out,
Right.
how did you do that?
Right. Well, and the thing is and why, when you asked me earlier, I said, I still haven't found the water I can walk on. Um, I state that because I in no way say I've been perfect at this. Um, this is, I in no way say I don't have people that have hurt me so bad that I don't know how to love them. I'm still working on many of those things. So, yeah, I am not saying I am Christ-like. I am saying I am. That is my aspiration. My aspiration is to
Mm,
be good. My aspiration is to continue loving those things. And when I find that perfected way, man, I'll tell everyone that I could possibly find. I just haven't got there yet, but I've worked really hard to continue doing that. That is my goal every single day. Is when people are unlikable to me, is trying to be kind. Um, and I would say more it works than doesn't. But yeah, I trust me. I'm not looking at you and saying, "Oh, you have been harmed, you've been hurt, you've been alienated, you've been spit on, you've been treated so badly. Go cuddle." Um, I, I I still haven't got that yet. Um, but when I see these individuals, most of them I don't think aimed any of it at me yet. Most of
mm,
them had aimed it in so many other directions, and they did during time aim it at me, but it wasn't it there was chances to be building these things. and
okay.
and now that I'm not in parole, it's been far easier, because people coming to coaching, they want help.
Right.
That's totally different. They've already seen, hey, I'm referred to you from this person because you've helped them, so they're already coming knowing that you do well, knowing that you're trustworthy, and knowing that you want to do well. That's easy. That's so much easier than when you've got individuals and that's why I thought that would be a cool thing to do, because I thought, wouldn't it be awesome to do the exact same thing, but for people that want it, that come in wanting it, that know they
Right.
want it, you know?
Right.
Most of the parolees I worked with, once they got it, knew they wanted it, but they didn't know they wanted it before they got
Which, I mean, would there be like a timeline for that? Like, that if some, when a parolee came in, was it like, well, you know what? There's usually a 2 week or a 2 month or a 6 month or whatever, and because of you of having or needing to build that safety and trust with them.
I always said that most of my parolees didn't know how to deal with me for the first 3 months. And by about 6 months, if they stayed on my caseload, because a lot of them would try to get on other caseloads because other caseloads were giving out the free food vouchers and giving out the free bus passes. And I'm like, if you stick with me, you're not going to need a bus pass. You can have a car. It's going to be yours. You won't even need to ask anyone for these things. You're not going to have to ask me for food, because you'll have money in your pocket to buy food. I'm trying to
Hmm.
help you on these things. Now, if you want to be at the end of your 3 years of parole still saying, "Can I have my food voucher?" Yeah, there's other parole agents that will do that. I just don't think that that's the best thing for you. So the ones that stayed with me and didn't transfer out, after about 6 months, they were full on. And the good thing that after about 6 months, them being full on, is word goes out, right? They talk to
Mm,
other parolees and say, no, he's not gaming you. This really
right.
is something that could be helpful. And I'm not saying, I just want to clarify, lots of awesome parole agents. I'm not saying that all agents were just out there handing out food vouchers and doing all those things. That's totally opposite of the truth. Most of the individuals I worked with, if I would say the majority of the individuals I worked with, had the best interest of the parolee at heart, trying to, because even if you're being selfish, what is the best thing you can have? You can have a person that is angry and wanting to go and do horrible things, and that is your society, right? That's going to be who's
Mm-hmm.
going to be out with your wife and your children and your family and your friends. Or you can have someone that you can try to actually help do better, could be making money of their own and doing things on their own, and never have to worry about them robbing, stealing, or doing anything to your family or friends. So if it's just for selfishness factor, I think that was a good thing. So yeah, I think most of the people
Yeah.
I worked with had good hearts and were trying to do good things.
Right. And I'm thinking too that by wanting the food vouchers or and the bus passes and different things like that, that would be safe and known at first. So it was
Right,
probably really scary to shift. Like sometimes I think in coaching too, you get a client and they're terrified. They know they want
right,
to change. They
right,
know they want to do this, but the unknown is scary.
right, right. Well, that's literally one of the things people are most afraid of, is the unknown. I mean, they say public speaking, but public speaking is the unknown. I mean, all of this is the unknown. What's going to happen when um, so yeah, if you've never done anything but receive things for free, it's hard to see how it is that it is better to go out there and earn or do or move forward in those areas. So that's very
Yeah.
difficult to do. Um, but it's also really, really, really nice not to have to worry. I mean, you
Yeah.
can go through your life and not worry. I'm not saying you're going to go through your life and never be pulled over by an officer again. I'm not saying you're going to go through your whole life and never not have conflict again. But to know that if the conflict happens, that it's not automatically going to be your fault, because you can show, this is who I am now. And you now have all of these other individuals who will raise their hands for you. And it's so much better when you can just not worry about all those other things. And that's even
Mhm.
true with, like you said, people going through these things they're dealing with now, whatever their it is, their it
Mhm.
that they're
Mhm.
dealing with. It makes me sad, it causes me harm, it's going to ruin my marriage, it is going to keep me from getting promoted. Whatever your it is, it's kind of hard to look at and say, but it's my it, and it's what I've had since I've been forever, and I don't know how to deal without it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so whether parolee or person dealing with whatever their little problem is or big problem is, or is a little problem and they don't realize it's a little problem until they can get their mind around that it's not a big one, um, those things are important.
So when you had a quote unquote it in your life,
Mm-hmm.
how did you make it through?
um, well, it's kind of funny. We talked the other day. I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna bring up the bee thing, because that's my
Okay.
latest thing I've just dealt with. Okay, this little approximately a year ago, I've been a beekeeper for 6 years. Loved it. Loved the ballet of the bees. Loved sitting out there and watching them come in and out of their hives. Loved the honey. I would give it to all my friends and family. Loved the wax. I would make candles and all these different things for everybody. I just lived the life of a beekeeper. I loved it. I knew that I was allergic to bees. Now, I did not know the level of my allergy to bees, because I've been stung a few times over that 5 years. Mostly my fault, not the bees. Just want to let you know, every time I was stung, it was because of something that I did that got the bees more excited than they should have and got stung. So every time I was like, well, that was my fault. Um, and one time my hand swelled up a little bit. The last time I got stung, which was 2 or 3 years ago, my face swelled up real big. And so when I contacted the doctor, they said, take a bunch of ibuprofen, Tylenol and Benadryl and go lay down. And I did that. And after about a day and a half, I looked human again. So it was great. So I then knew I was allergic enough to bees that I should probably get an EpiPen, to have around. The doctor said, looking at my face, you probably should be protected. I said, okay. So years went by, or year and a half went by, something like that. And my bride said, hey, let's go walk in the backyard. It's a beautiful day. Let's go look at our garden. I said, sounds great. We're just going looking at vegetables, beautiful Sunday, sun's out, stunning. I walk in the backyard and we're looking at the vegetables. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, not my fault this time, out of nowhere, a bee comes over and stings me in my ear, right here on the top of my ear. So, not that big a deal. I knew the response. I scraped off the stinger, went inside. I got the Benadryl, the ibuprofen, or the Tylenol, and the ibuprofen, and I took my 3 things and I said, okay, that's all I need to do. Just need to sit down. Well, I went and sat down, and all of a sudden my whole body is starting to get covered with red dots. It just rashed all up. And my wife is looking at me and she thought my blood pressure was shooting up because I was bright red. So she takes my blood pressure and it was 70/30 or something like that. And she goes, that's impossible. She goes, that the blood pressure thing is broken. It can't be working. So I go, okay, I just don't feel good. I go to the restroom. I feel like I'm gonna get sick. I stand up, fall down. Stand up, fall down again. She goes, we need to get you to the hospital. I can't go to the hospital. Stand up, fall down again. So now I'm on the floor, and all of a sudden, for the first time ever, I thought, I'm going to die. That feeling that you go, okay, I'm no longer in control here. I could feel my heartbeat stopping. I am going to die. And so I looked up to her and I said, I'm going to die. Call 911. And she did. She called 911. And that's the last part I remembered, was her calling 911. While she was on the phone with 911, she told them that, I'd taken the ibuprofen and all that stuff. And she goes, but I have an EpiPen here. Should I use it? She goes, I was afraid to use it because he's taking all this stuff. And he said, yes. And then told her how to use it. She stabbed it into my leg. And I, within a few seconds, came back, got sick. And then the EMTs were there. It felt like within 30 seconds after that. My blood pressure was actually that. I was dying when they came in. My blood pressure was almost 0. I mean, I was not pumping blood. If it wasn't for the EpiPen, I would have. The EMT said that I would have died before they got there. So once again, my bride saved my life. I mean, she saved my life when she married me. Now she saved my life doing this. So too late to say long story short, because it's been long, but it grew a fear in me. Because now I was afraid of bees. And so just a part to tell what happened is a wasp group had attacked my beehive. And so the bees were agitated and they were out attacking. And I just happened to be where they were mad at that time. So I called my mentor in beehives on beekeeping, and I said, come get all the bees. He did. I had 3 hives, big hives. He came and got them. And even though he did, bees started attacking my screen. I thought everywhere they were coming, everywhere I went, they were.
So your perception was, regardless of what was happening, they are coming after me. And this is well after.
This is well after. This went on for, I was afraid to leave the house for well over a month. Anytime I did, I ran to a car. I was trying to explain to my wife how the bees were trying to attack me because mentally that was reality for me at that point. And she said, that's just crazy. You got to stop talking like that. I mean, in a nice way, loving way. But we were driving to this place and I go, look, and right on the windshield was a bee sitting there on the windshield. I go, see, they're trying to attack me. So the reality is bees have probably landed on my windshield 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. I don't know how many times. Bees are everywhere. So the chances of them being on my windshield are pretty high. But I had never noticed it before because it wasn't something that was my center of these are trying to kill me. They were just always these wonderful things that were out there. And so my perception on everything in life had changed. And my fear, which I had never really had, I've worked in prisons, I've worked with parolees. I was a second striker parole agent, which is the highest level of parole there is. These guys on their third strike can go back to prison for life. I mean, that should be fearful. I was fine. But a little dinky thing like this now had locked me into my home. And so I was speaking to a person that I respect highly. And we were having lunch because he said, you need to get out. And he brought me to lunch and talked to me. And I just said, if I could get through this, if I could just get through this. And this wasn't like 30 years ago. This was last year. I was already a life coach. I was already teaching people how to get through their fears. I was already dealing with everyone else's issues, problems. And he just said, you don't need to get through this. This is life. And I go, but I was like, you don't understand. No, he's like, no, this is life. This fear is life. That bee is life. That there are other bees flying around is life. That it won't be the end of your life is life. That you're hyper-focused right now is life. It's not waiting to get to the time where you're skipping around and just all is well. That's life. And that seems so simple. And someone hearing it right now probably is saying, duh, right? Come on. That couldn't be more basic. But for me, that was the deepest level of, doctorate degree philosophy I had ever heard in my entire life. And it was everything. And from that point forward, I started walking around again. I didn't run to my car. I walked to my car. I went back in my garden, and trust me, my garden is filled with bees. It still has bees coming around there. But I went back there, and know what? They did not care. They were going on. It's funny to think that bees all over the world were not thinking, how can we kill Scott? All they were doing is making honey and pollinating plants and doing their life. And that was the aha moment lately that just sent off a thing that, you know what? Not only aren't bees out there saying, how can we kill Scott? The guy slowing down in front of me in the car isn't trying to annoy me. The person that doesn't have their money out at the grocery store and is just standing there going as slow is not doing that just because they think that I have more time than I do. The person who is grouchy with me that you were talking about, they're not trying to make me angry, hurt my feelings, or make my life uncomfortable. They're going through their own hell. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, planets, stop rotating around me. I get that this isn't reality. And I started even more than I was before that date. It took me almost 60 years to see even more that I am here to help and love and care for others. And in doing so, my life is life right now. And so that was a very long answer to a very short question. So
I love your very long answer because it's just like I said, love authentically and just share who I am. I mean, that's exactly what you do. But if you could sum up in 3 tools or tips, if somebody's in the midst of that struggle right now, besides knowing that the struggle is where life happens, what would you say? Try this or think about this.
I think the first 3 tools and tips of the first, and it might be all 3, but it's definitely the first, is share the reality you're going through with someone you trust. And I'm not saying with just anyone, because there is nothing worse than going and saying to someone, like with mine, I'm scared to death right now to go outside, and them going, that's ridiculous. Those bees don't care about you, and you're just being silly. When your whole world is rocked like that, the last thing you need to hear is that you're stupid and silly. So that's why I said, when I say share with someone you trust, make sure it's someone you really trust. Someone who cares enough about you to say, wow, okay, tell me what is making you feel this way. Talk to me about it. Let me know. Not just like, but just let me know and let me talk. And once you start speaking it out and you're hearing it out loud, and then they speak it back and you can hear those things, it starts making it more reality than this fantasy of that there is no way out of this hell. And I think that is a really, really big point. I think the second is that looking at your past, I have my clients, especially my clients that are suffering from diagnosed depression. Not me. I do not diagnose, and I do in no way diagnose anything. I deal strictly with coaching. But the people I've had refer to me from psychiatrists, psychologists that already have a diagnosis of depression, and their depression is cyclical. I have them write themselves. I kind of make their own 72-hour kit that I say, a 72-hour kit of health. And they write themselves that you will come through this. Because I can tell someone suffering from depression, you will come through this. And they say, you don't know what I'm going through. Right? And I don't. They're exactly right. I don't. But they do. And so when they're on their good and they're on their high and they're feeling really like they can talk to themselves, I have them take pictures with their family. I have them write things about, hey, listen, usually it takes you about 3 to 4 days before you're going to come through this. When you don't believe you're going to come through this, sometimes it takes 2 weeks. So let's work on these things. And it's from them. So I think the tool of letting you know you is a really, really healthy thing. And if you have a cyclical situation, manic depression, different things, and I'm not, once again, not dealing with the diagnosis. I'm just dealing with the side effects and the things that happen during those things, is that when you are on your A game, write your F- game some letters. Write them some things that tells you that there is a way out of this. Because when you're at your lowest point, you don't believe anybody but you. And you are lying to you, right? When you're at your lowest point, you're lying to you. You're saying, I will never get out of this. This is the end and it will never get better. Because that's what these different diagnoses do. They say, I say anxiety is the biggest liar in the world, right? It tells you things that are going to happen that you don't know are going to happen. And not only are they going to happen, they're all going to be miserable. So if you get that job, you're going to fail. Everyone's going to hate you. You're going to lose it. And then you'll never get another job. Rather than you get the job. You got the job. Why isn't that awesome? So these different things that we're dealing with in life, if we can remind ourselves when we're doing well, it's a real good friend to have during our fight. Because at times this is a fight, right? It's not just we both talked. We both love meditation. I love meditation, and we both love flow. I mean, I'm huge on flow, and when I'm at my flow, it's my best. I love that. But there are times where my flow isn't flowing in areas where I need to go, and I think my decisions, my own knowledge, tells me, no, this is a time I need to fight. I need to step up and do some things that aren't just go with it. And so I don't know if that's anti some different things. It's just how I have been for me. So that's what I always said. If you're looking for these other type of coaches, there are other type of coaches out there that do great things in specific areas. And mine is far more looking at me and working, when I say me, my client, and saying, hey, listen, who are we? Whether we're dealing with drug addiction, whether we're dealing with pornography, whether we're dealing with can't find a job, whether we're dealing with problems with spouse, those are all human issues. They're just issues that we as humans go through. And know what? 90% of the time, we already have the answer to how we're going to deal with it, because I think the answers are built within us. But sometimes we just can't hear it until someone else says it. Like, you'll say it and I'll go, did you hear what you just said? Yes.
Right. Yeah.
What did you
that's
just say?
my favorite. That's my favorite part.
Right? What did you just say? Oh, I said that this is ruining my life. Okay. So it's ruining your life. So it's something you want to continue with? No. Okay, that's a start, right? You're telling you that you don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
that it,
Yeah.
right? I didn't tell
Mm.
you. I didn't tell you. You told you. And now I want you to write that down. I just said I don't want it. Okay, good. Now we got a good start. Now let's start working on how we can do those other things.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, amazing conversation. I'm so glad to have had you on this show. I'm going to tell people how to find you now.
oh, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. You can find Scott on his website at outlierlcs.com. You can email him at scott@outlierlcs.com. He's on Facebook, but not all the time. He's not like
Yeah,
me checking in.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
And he will yeah, like just I loved this conversation, and I loved pointing out that the strength is found in the struggle, and that's where life happens.
Yeah.
Because if I have learned anything, it is that. And I think I learned it more after starting the podcast and talking to so many people with struggles that I went, oh, this is where life is. All these people managed to get through. So now when I'm in a flare up, or I'm in this, or I'm in that, okay, I've done, and I can remember I did this before.
Yeah.
How did I do it? And then I can make mental notes of those things. So I just love that you're guiding people through that, and that you just love every single person on this earth, even at their worst. And so thank you for that.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, we shall see you next week. Have a good week.